We're good?
Well, we certainly won't. Everybody.
Welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. We start every meeting with a pledge to the flag, so please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And special welcome to Ann tonight at the first meeting, and student Board of Education rep. No basketball tonight? Okay. Welcome to the table. So we have a proposed agenda tonight, meeting with a consent agenda which includes all personnel and all new business. Actually, before we get started with that, Ms. Morrison, do you have one you want to clarify?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Just one quick note. Under personnel, BW4, we will have to make a change to that particular probationary appointment pending fingerprints. The verification system that we use has been down for a couple of days. We have been told that it is verified, but we would like to lay eyes on it ourselves, so we're going to amend that to say pending instead. Yeah, fingerprints pending, yes.
Any questions or concerns on that item? Is there anything else that anybody would like to be pulled out of consent tonight? Could I have a motion to approve it? Ms. Colo, a second?
Second.
Ms. Howell? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Yes. So we move right into our first public comment of the night. And the board is reserved, I'll just read this to you. The board is reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address. Limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns and comments during the session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for tonight. If it is not directly related, we have a second commentary at the end where people can speak on anything that's not on the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to address the board tonight? And if you could state your name and address. I know your name, but you could state it anyway.
I'm Andrew Krenzer. I live at 311 East Main. First, I just want to say I'm not a public speaker, but I figure if I practiced in the car with my 13-year-old daughter, then I could probably speak in front of anyone. I have 4 young children in the Fredonia district, and I think they're the most awesome kids in the whole world, not biased at all. But I'm specifically here to talk about and support our young female athletes here in the district. In my opinion, they deserve an opportunity. None of them voted yes or no in this last capital project vote. And I have to say I'm just as disappointed as many of you may be in the results of the capital project. But with that said, none of the facilities, if it were approved, would have been ready for this upcoming spring season. And we kind of feel that we might be holding our young girls hostage a little bit with this opportunity, or if this opportunity passes. Several of these same girls that are sitting here today participated in fall athletics that used the same exact fields that they would be using this spring. And I know the weather was really crazy and cold today, but I'm not really aware of any of the situations that may have changed from the fall to the spring that would hinder their opportunity to play. Especially knowing, if you think about it, there's a lot more fall sports that used our fields that would be using them in the spring, especially if you add in all of our community sports that also use the same fields. If this program isn't approved, you're going to be basically having us as parents make some really tough decisions. And I know you make tough decisions all the time, but if you think about if you were in our position, we now are going to be forced to either have to sign our daughters up to play modified football, risking the injury, or, even worse, probably, would be to sit them out. and have them watch every other kid, or maybe watch an awesome varsity season again, and hopefully they maybe learn from just watching, while meanwhile other school districts here in Chautauqua County, Western New York State, and the country all actually participate. With that being said, I want to kind of go back to my 4 kids, as I have 3 daughters and I have an older son, Trenton. He's that doofy kid that is 6'2" with the long hair that runs the streets of Fredonia. And we kind of all see him going every day. But I specifically bring him up because he's had a lot of success and he's worked really hard for it, and I'm super proud of him. But going back to that biased part, one of the things that I've noticed with him is that he had some opportunities. He had some of the best coaches here in Fredonia that I have ever seen or ever witnessed. And on top of that, that has led him to patches in swimming, Super 8 meets in track, attending New York State Public High School Athletic State Championships, not once but twice, and he's only a sophomore. But again, my bias. And I say to you, the reason he realistically had those opportunities is because he started in modified. He was a participant in modified track. He was a 7th grade swimmer. He participated in modified cross country. Without those opportunities, he would have never gotten where he is today. Yes, it took hard work, but the difference is he had the opportunity. And what we're asking for is that same opportunity for these young ladies that are sitting here. And I want to send them a message. Send them a message to every female athlete here at Fredonia and say, there doesn't matter what obstacle stands in front of you, whether it's fields, whether it's officials, whatever it is, we're going to give them that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pretzer. That is coming up on the agenda, so we'll be having some further discussion on that. Anybody else have a question? Brad, you can response.
Yeah, that's tough to follow, but my name's Andrew Brown, 9502 Seymour Road in Fredonia here. So thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to speak today. Again, my name's Drew Brown, Fredonia resident, taxpayer, youth sports coach, business owner locally here in Fredonia, but my most important title is actually dad. I have 3 kids in the Fredonia district. My daughter Ellie, who's sitting here today with some of her friends, 12 years old, 7th grade. I have a son Coleman, he's 10 years old, he's in the 5th grade, and a son Lincoln, who's 6 years old and in the 1st grade. And I want each of them to have every opportunity, no matter their gender. Right? It doesn't matter, boy, girl, they should have the same opportunities. I know of at least 6 to 7 teams that play on the Orange Bowl in the fall, and the field actually holds up to some of that abuse, most of the abuse. I was part of one of those teams, right? I coached Fredonia midget football, tackle football. Very successful season. We used that field. Thank you, by the way, for letting us use that field. It went very well. The field held up. The field does need replacing. I agree. And in all transparency, I did vote yes in the vote. However, my vote was not the only one that mattered. Unfortunately, if it was, we'd be getting the fields. But again, holding these girls hostage for a failed vote is immoral and I think just downright wrong. A modified sports season, as you all know, is abbreviated compared to a varsity season. So the stress on the field being a concern from the board, from my perspective, is kind of a non-fact. I think the field can absolutely stand up to it. There's going to be essentially 2 teams playing on that field in the spring, if modified passes. And so I've coached many sports over the last 7 years in Fredonia, including baseball, basketball, tackle football, and actually the flag football summer program. That was a huge success. The lessons learned from the players, from my perspective, were life-changing for those young athletes. Dealing with adversity when you're losing or you have an injury, getting up when you get knocked down, and how to win humbly are just a few of those lessons that we try and teach to them, and I want those opportunities for these girls. To take that opportunity to play and learn those lessons through hard work and dedication from these ladies is a huge disservice. And so I thank you and ask that you pass the program and let the girls play. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any other comments tonight? Okay, thank you very much. And that is coming up later in the session. So next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from January 7th. I have a motion to bring that to the table.
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, thank you. Second.
Second.
Ms. Fortman. Any comments or questions on those minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks. Also, we have a facilities committee meeting minutes to approve from January 9th, 2025. We have a motion to bring those minutes to the table.
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, a second.
Second.
Ms. Cole? Ms. Fortman, thank you. Dr. Zodas, any comments on the facilities minutes?
Yeah, so just as a quick reminder, the board has three subcommittees that are made up of three board representatives. One for facilities, one for policy, and one for audit. We try to meet at least 3 times a year each. And with the capital project and thinking about our facilities over the last couple of years, our facilities committee has met a little bit more than most, or we had meetings as an entire board with our architect in a variety of different settings to have those discussions. But this was the first facilities meeting after the vote. We took some time to process what is going to happen moving forward. First and foremost, we talked about proposition number 1, again, which is about $20 million worth of maintenance work. Again, we're very pleased that this passed. This is much needed work that's going to happen across the district. There's a variety of things involved, which includes roofs, mechanical systems, a playground at Wheelock, some plumbing work, PA system at Wheelock, resurfacing the track back here on the main campus, amongst some other maintenance kinds of items. We are in the process of planning what exactly that plan will look like for that work. One of the things that we're discussing is, would that all be in one plan, or would we divide that plan out into 2 phases? The advantages of dividing it out is we can start some of the work a little bit earlier with a smaller project, and maybe begin to move forward with some of the things that connect mostly the students. In particular, we talked a little bit about the playground at Wheelock, maybe getting an earlier start in some other parts of the project. So that is a work in progress. We'll have more information here regarding what exactly that will look like. There'll be more information coming to the Board of Education as we process and speak a little bit more about that. We also talked about Proposition 2 and Proposition 3, which I think we all know did not pass and are not part of the work that's going to be moving forward. One of the things that we had sort of prepared for is the idea that it was possible that Proposition 2 may have failed, but by a small margin, and perhaps Proposition 3 may have failed by a small margin. And if that were to have been the case, we were sort of prepared to possibly come back out to the community, maybe as soon as our annual budget vote in May, with a updated, smaller project in those areas that might be appealing. However, when we did see the results of the vote that were a little bit more of a deficit than we hoped or maybe even anticipated, the feeling of the committee at this meeting was that there's really not an opportunity right now to go back out, certainly not as soon as May. And we're really exploring other ways that we can address our needs in the music program and also the needs with our athletic fields. This meeting, again, first one after the vote, we do not have any final word or final decisions about what that looks like, how we will approach that, where we'll look for funding, when exactly that work will happen. That's an ongoing conversation. We do have another meeting on February 4, right before our next board meeting after tonight. So we are looking at all of those possibilities and all of those potential options. Within that, we talked about what could this look like down the road in another capital project that would be sort of on schedule with our debt falling off, which wouldn't be for another couple of years. That is an option, that is a possibility. We talked a little bit about the financial advantages to that and what that might look like and how much work could be done with zero impact to taxpayers. We also talked a little bit about just focusing on the Orange Bowl, thinking about the Orange Bowl. Are there some smaller upgrades we could make to that facility? That certainly wouldn't be at the expense of what we were proposing for the capital project. But is there a way to upgrade that facility to bring it somewhat more up to date and especially more enjoyable, not only from the safety and player perspective, but also from the spectator perspective as well. Again, that's an ongoing conversation with no real other news to share at this point. Mr. Marshall was at that meeting. Mr. Johnston, another one of our committee members, was not able to make it. Mrs. Hahn was at that meeting. Anything you'd like to add regarding the minutes or the discussion that was happened?
No, I have nothing to add.
I think that's a general summary and more information to follow in the coming weeks.
Any other comments from anybody that was not at the meeting? All those in favor? Opposed?
No, I don't remember what exactly we're voting on.
Oh,
The
the
minutes,
minutes.
the minutes
For the facilities
acceptance.
meeting?
Yes.
Aye.
I figured I did something wrong over that slide, so, all right, thank you. So we can move on to the financial treasurer's report. Mr. Forbes, we got budget status, investment revenues.
Yep, doing together like we've kind of been with the dashboard. On the revenue side, we picked up $49,000 during the month of interest earnings off the T-bills, which is good. We got our BOCES annual refund for surplus expenses, $169,000, which was above the budget, again, good. And we got $80,000 of lottery, which was on schedule. On the expenditure side, I really didn't adjust much, but I would think in the next two reports for January and February, you'll see some adjustments there. As we get more of the utility bills, we get our second BOCES bill in, and we can compare some of that information to the budget. So, the revenue side's tracking good. We're ahead on a couple of areas, which always helps us, specifically in interest and Medicaid reimbursements, which is typically where we see the actual revenue funds come in.
So you feel we're on track with this
We're
one?
on track.
Okay. Any questions?
You're about, I'm gonna say $500,000, I don't want to jinx you here, but between lower expenses and higher revenue, you're about $500,000.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit higher once we take a look at the BOCES services and the utility costs. Probably that'll get us closer to where we budgeted.
Thank you.
Better to be on that side of the track than the other side right now, so that's good. So next on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Can I have a motion to bring that to the table? Mr. Aldridge, the second.
Second.
Mr. Forbes?
No issues.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next step under business is, on the agenda is to approve the mileage reimbursement rate increase effective January 1st, 2025. Have a motion to bring that to the table.
So moved.
Ms. Cullo, a second.
Second.
Ms. Ford, we got a Ford here, so got to divvy it up here. Is this an annual increase, isn't it, Mr. Forbes?
Generally, it's been an increase contractually in our contracts, there's language related to mileage reimbursement, which was 0.1% below the IRS rate when it comes to non-taxable situations. It's just not updating to reflect January 1st.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And last item under financial tonight is to approve the revised teaching assistant substitute rates for the 24-25 year. Have a motion to bring that to the table.
So moved.
Ms. Keller.
Second.
Ms. Gordon, thank you. Any comments on these pay increases, Dr. Zilios?
Yeah, just a reminder that each year, January 1st, minimum wage increases currently. And this is to keep pace with minimum wage and make sure that anybody that we're bringing in is not making below minimum wage. So these need to be adjusted to account for that increase.
Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that concludes financial. Everything under personnel tonight's in consent, but it leads us to something that's a bit rare, I think, and that's old business. You said
This is the first time,
2015.
yes. Yes. About 10 years since we've had old business.
It's been a bit of time here. But the old businesses bring us back to the table, the motion to approve the girls' modified flag football for further discussion and a possible vote. Members here that are very interested in this. So can I have a motion to take that from the table? The motion to approve the girls' flag football as previously submitted on January 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Fortnite? So Dr. Zaks, before we open up discussion to the board members, anything to add or?
Yeah, so just in response to some of the comments tonight, and I don't want to speak for the board, but basically, you know, as that resolution came forward to approve, what I heard is that the board did not say no to that resolution, but was looking for more information from it. So this was sort of like a pause to get it back to tonight, knowing that we had some time before the beginning of the season starts or being real close to the start of the season. The board asked several valid questions. They included the following. One was about the grant from the Buffalo Bills, whether that was a one-year gift or if that money was available for just this current year, and technically it is. With things like this, they can always be offered again, but for right now, yes, it is for this year, and again, that's in the amount of $3,000. The board also asked a little bit about, you know, thinking about the sports that we have existing right now, and then potentially bringing on another modified sport. What do the numbers look like with different courses, perhaps with the addition of varsity flag football? And I provided some numbers, and thanks for Coach Petrando as our AD for giving some of those numbers. And I think it's tough to predict, but basically what those numbers showed, first of all, was a definite interest in flag football. And in moments, some decrease in other programs, but not to the level of which we weren't able to field a track team, we weren't able to field another sport, and also keeping in mind that some of those sports have, you know, in the grand scheme of things, just by the nature of the sport, softball, golf, some pretty low numbers, 13, 12, 10, 7 participants. The goal would be to have 22 girls as part of the modified team, so it seems like we'd be able to sustain successful participation in all of those programs. There was also a question about after this year, if the grant goes away, what will that look like in terms of cost? And the cost would be in the $10,000 range, which is more than some of our sports and less than some of our other sports. So, you know, kind of right in line with what we might expect for something at the modified level that also doesn't require a great deal of equipment. We were asked about potential coaches. The recommendation as it stands right now would be for 2 coaches. You know, in the future, at least for now, we would continue with that recommendation, at least from the district level, thinking that although it's not tackle football, it's a fast-moving game, there is some contact, and sometimes some collision. It would probably be helpful to have more than one coach present, especially when you're talking about 22 girls versus a lesser number. There was also a question about, you know, the field usage, what would that look like, what would be alternatives, so on and so forth. And we do this, most spring seasons. We never know what the spring is going to bring. Sometimes the spring is a little drier and nicer weather than some others. Oftentimes we get a lot of rain. We have the melting of some amount of snow. Sometimes that amount is fairly large in the spring. So we're always kind of monitoring, looking at the fields and seeing when they're ready for us to play on them. Last year with the varsity flag program, the Orange Bowl was in good shape right from the get-go, and it really continued throughout the season. The recommendation, and after talking with, again, Coach Bertrando is our AD, also a flag coach, as well as Coach Kappelmeyer, the idea would be to at least mirror the fall participation at the Orange Bowl. Have both teams, hopefully and potentially, play at the Orange Bowl. Again, for the modified team this year, being a new year, we'd probably be looking at no more than 4 games. But practice would be mainly on Chestnut, maybe in moments practicing at the Orange Bowl to get familiar with the environment, to get acclimated to the field, also potentially to run full field drills, some of those things, the walkthroughs before the game, but we'd be looking to limit practice on that field and practice on the Chestnut field. If for some reason the Chestnut field wasn't available, we would also have the field here on the main campus behind the tennis courts available. One of the nice things about flag, it doesn't require goalposts, so it really can be played on any open field. So the board also asked, are we thinking about the other fields as well, where alternatives might be if we needed to go other places for other sports as well. We tried to think our way through that a little bit. As you know, baseball games are typically played on our game field either behind the school. Chestnut is an alternative field, oftentimes used by the JV team, but that would be an alternate for practice or play for the varsity team. For the softball field, again, we typically play out back here, either on the varsity or the modified field. If the varsity field isn't ready to go, we could look to the modified field. We could look at possibly going to arrange for Dunkirk. We could look at playing at SUNY for Dunkirk, potentially. Same thing we've done in the past for boys football. They use the Chestnut field for practice, and if the Orange Bowl was not playable, we looked to Dunkirk mainly for games. Same thing that I just mentioned already for potentially girls flag and girls modified. As you know, soccer, we typically play home games at SUNY Fredonia. Well, with the recent work that we've done on the varsity field, we'll see how that takes shape in the fall. There might be more availability there. If not, we could also look to the field behind the tennis courts that we played at least one varsity game this year. When our varsity field, that landscaping wasn't ready to go. So we've tried to be a little more thoughtful about what are those alternatives, what does that look like if things were to come up. And I think the last question was, would it even be possible if worse comes to worse, that we play all of the modified games away? That is definitely possible. That would increase transportation costs. But the recommendation at the time is to play both home and away games, give that team and those athletes the experience of playing in front of their own crowd as well as going on the road. So I think that really summed up the bulk of the questions that seem to be on the table for consideration or concern. And I don't know if the board has any other questions at this time.
Thank you for putting in all that work. The board had a lot of questions, obviously, and we wanted some answers, and not all the questions pertain to fields. Certainly a lot of work's been done the last 2 weeks to help answer a lot of the questions that we have. And that's our role, is to ask questions. So are there any other comments from the board members?
Thank you for getting all the answers. I want to thank the girls for coming. I think it's awesome you came to speak up on something you believe in. And I'm sorry you felt held hostage. That wasn't our intention. We just really had questions to make sure you would have a safe and successful experience. So that's why we put it on hold for a couple weeks to get those answers. So I'm sorry you felt that way, but we love all of our athletes. I have female athletes as well in our family, so thanks for coming.
Thanks, Ms. Cole. Any other questions? Ms. Howell?
Not a question, thank you for the answers to all of our questions. And I was the person who initially requested that this be tabled, so I did want to address it. Yeah, we certainly were not holding anyone hostage. We have had referees, coaches, community members, parents of our own athletes, and parents of opposing teams complain of the unsafe condition of our fields. And so we as a board have tried to address that, and now we don't have a project to replace the fields, but we still need to do something, and it will cost money. And so, to me, tabling that until the next meeting was running a school district in a prudent and responsible way. We need to know what it's going to cost. The Buffalo Bills offered us $3,000 for 1 year. That's less than a third of what it's going to cost us. And going forward, it's not very easy once you start something to stop it. So to be prudent and responsible, we need to consider things carefully, and not, what I would like to see is our school district have, and I believe we're working on it, a strategic plan that covers several years where we proactively decide what we need and what we want. And we're not reacting to an outside organization offering us less than a third of 1 year of what it's going to cost our school district. So I am thrilled to have another girls' sport. I certainly support that, but I also support that we tabled it and considered it, and I hope going forward we will follow a strategic plan and be more proactive ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Howell. Any other questions? Sounds like we're ready for a vote. If so, could I have a motion to approve the girls' modified flag football for the 2025?
It's already been announced from last week.
Oh, okay, so,
At this
any
point,
motion then?
at this point, we have the motion from, Mr. Aldridge is correct, we have the motion from the past.
Okay.
Now we can move forward to the vote.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Pleased with the support that we had here tonight for that, so thank you.
Thank you.
That leads us to our second round of public comment, and it's pretty similar to the first, with the exception of it could be anything that's not on the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to speak to the second round? Right, thank you. Next is our superintendent's report. Dr. Williams.
Yeah, a couple items. One is, as you may have noticed, we have some focus on absenteeism in the district this year. We've been sharing information here about monthly breakdowns of our attendance at each of our buildings. Mr. Paschke has shared some information specifically from the high school, correlating attendance and success in terms of grades and academics. And in the past, it's sort of been either your attendance is okay or it's chronic. Basically, that kind of landed at 18 school days, was sort of that mark. And that's sort of difficult, that one day takes you from, I guess, somewhat acceptable attendance to not acceptable. And I was interested to see that the New York State Education Department is adjusting their scale for attendance, and Mr. Paschke will be happy to know that it involves some algebra in the mix, which is interesting. So they're shifting to sort of an attendance index that comes from algebraic equation and will give digits a 3-digit number that will gauge where they are in terms of attendance. What that basically looks like is they'll have 4 different levels, which they currently do not have. If your attendance is below 85%, that's called level 1. That wouldn't be what we're looking for, and we hope that students in our district would be above that level 1, above 85%, attending 85% of the school year. Level 2 is 85.1 to 90%, moving in the right direction, but still we would hope our students could get into level 3 or 4. Level 3 is 90.1 to 95% attendance throughout the school year. And level 4 is above 95.1%. This also excludes individuals who have been in your school district less than 30 days, which is a shift. So if we have a student move in and they don't attend for 10 days, that student would not count initially as someone being chronically absent, at least initially. Based on those levels, you actually receive points per each level. Like, for example, every time a student is in that level 4, we get 2.5 points. Eventually, there's a total of all those students' numbers, and that is divided by the number of students enrolled. You would then get this 3-digit number. An example they gave, if the school district were to get a 152, and we'll have to get our heads more around what these numbers actually mean. That would mean that that district had an unexcused rate or an absenteeism rate of 39%, which again would not be what we're looking for. We wouldn't see that as being acceptable. And obviously, the lower the absenteeism rate, the more kids are attending school. So we'll be interested to monitor this and see how this plays out for our school and what our numbers will look like moving forward. In the meantime, we'll continue to monitor here from the more global district level, also with the individual buildings. We hope to make progress this school year in this area and then continue on for years ahead. But I felt like this was a positive move on behalf of the state, that there's some type of tiered approach rather than just you're under or over this 18-day mark. Also wanted to touch on the governor last week gave her State of the State address. That includes a lot of information outside of the realm of education and also some information within school funding in terms of her initial proposal. Tonight, I just want to focus on the school funding piece of this. As of right now, in her proposal, there's a 4.7% overall increase in school aid. That sounds encouraging. One of the things they note is when there's an increase in one area, there is usually a decrease in somewhere else. Right now, in her proposal, there's a decrease in the money that would be set aside for Medicaid, so we'll monitor that and see what happens. Also, $37.4 billion will be devoted to education aid across the state. That is about 1.7 billion increase over last year. So again, that sounds encouraging for us. This plan also includes about 1.5 billion increase in foundation aid. In terms of the adjustments that potentially might be made to foundation aid, there really wasn't a whole lot of specifics there. More focusing on the fact that districts should not see a decrease, and there was a guarantee that districts would have at least a 2% increase and possibly more, depending on your district. One of the things she did note would be adjusted would be the poverty index, which is a new calculation rather than what we've done in the past, which was rely on free and reduced lunch totals for a district. So there's a shift there. Also talked about continuing to fund free breakfast and lunch for all students moving forward next year, so that should be part of the plan. And although this is her state of the state, and this is her proposal, there are always adjustments that take place in between now and as we get closer to our annual budget vote in May. We'll continue to monitor that. At this point, as a school district, we have had paperwork out for our system of our personnel being able to request and ask for either equipment or additional funding through the annual budget. That paperwork is coming to our business office by the end of the month. We then meet with each administrator from each of our schools and talk about what they're looking for in the upcoming school years, how we can potentially offer more programming, how we can be as efficient as possible with our staffing, and the resources we do have available to us. Those meetings will happen early, mid-February, and then usually by the end of February, early March, we'll be here with an initial budget proposal and begin sharing information not only with the board, but with the public as we think about our vote in May. So a little bit about the governor's proposal and also about our internal process that will eventually lead to our final annual budget. Also, just wanted to touch on the fact that Thursday night, the 23rd, our board will have a retreat. That retreat will really focus on thinking about how our school board can operate as effectively and efficiently as possible, beginning to think about what that might look like in a procedure manual that outlines how we will operate, how things will be done, how decisions will be made, basically how we can work together and support the things in the district that are deemed valuable and essential to our students and our faculty and staff. Lastly, today, there's always a lot of comments and questions about snow days. Please know one of the kind of mindsets behind all this is that we try to use the information that we have at the time to make the best decision that we possibly can. There are a lot of factors involved in that. One is certainly the current weather conditions, what is happening outside right in the moment. We're also monitoring the forecast as best we possibly can, trying to use technology, radar, to really see what that looks like over the course of the school day. In today's case, thinking about temperatures, wind chill, real field temperatures, what might that be like for students who are waiting for buses or who might be traveling to school, especially in the morning, which typically is a little bit colder in the afternoon. And also just really prioritizing safety and how much do we want to risk one school day for the safety of potentially students, staff, faculty, administration, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, again, we take all that information. These conversations usually start, if we haven't canceled the night before, about 5 a.m. in the morning. We usually try to make a decision by about 5:45 and notify families as soon as possible. Please know we try to be reasonable. Again, we try to prioritize safety. And we do the best we can with sometimes a difficult and not a perfect science behind calling a snow day or not. I just wanted to comment on that. I do appreciate the people who have reached out to me directly and wanted to have a conversation or wanted more information. Please, anytime, reach out. I'm more than happy to return an email or just pick up the phone and give you a call. I think that concludes everything in terms of superintendent's report.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? On the superintendent's report?
No, we're waiting on one piece of information, which will be the state aid runs, because there's a section for the debt service, and we have to confirm that. So I would say next couple of days we should be
Great, okay. On to announcements and board correspondences, 2 items. First is our next regular meeting is Tuesday, February 4th, 6 p.m. here in the high school library. And as Dr. Ziliak's alluded to, this Thursday we have a retreat. We're having a member representative from the New York State School Board Association coming in to speak with us and help run our retreat. And Thank you again, Ms. Paul Foreman, for all the work you've done, and it's a lot of work to put something on this. It's our version of professional development, so looking forward for sure. Is that 5 to 8? That's just us, right? That's right here, so. So, any other general comments from our board members before we get to our board scores?
Thank you, Kate, for helping with the treatment.
Oh, yes, thanks. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Mr. Heskey, anything tonight? Looking very relaxed.
Yes, nice day.
That's good.
We had to move our exams today because we closed. We sent out communications, Dr. Ziliax and I communicated with the state this morning and our opposing superintendent. We have to inform them about how the Regents exams will be stored and that they're going to be safe and what date and time to pick to replace the exam and all those things. It was very smooth. We're going to have exams and communicate with families. Today's exams will just take place on Friday. We have to do some juggling in the schedule a little bit with some of the property, but that's all good. Last week we had two really nice events. One was the National Art Honor Society induction and art show. That went off very, very well. Also, our advanced music performance had a recital last week, which was incredible. The kids were just super top notch and just rocked it. It was a really great thing. Just a quick announcement. We have next year, Dr. Wright, thank you for your work on this, but our phys ed teachers wrote a proposal for a new phys ed class for next year, and we're going to be offering a new course in phys ed that is going to be a more competitive level phys ed. So we're going to have our regular phys ed classes and then a more highly competitive phys ed classes. And so we approved that, and that's going to be offered for the first time next year. So just my thanks to our phys ed teachers who wrote the proposal and to Dr. Wright who helped review it. So my great appreciation. Thank you. That's it.
Really interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, this past week we're still doing the parachute in phys ed, so that's a pretty big hit for all the elementary kids. It's a classic, you know. Yeah, so in the elementary school we're starting up the Big Buddy program again, where we partner up a couple of upperclassmen from the high school, and then when their school day ends, they come down to our building and they grab some of our kids and they just do just relationship building activities. But we're going to try and look for a link in, does that activity increase attendance? Because our hope is to match some kids who have poor attendance with the Big Buddies to give them a reason to come to school. So we're hoping to get some data on that. We also had Jim Mamansky from the American Legion come into our fourth graders, and every year, this time of year, they roll out the What the Flag Means to Me essay competition. And Tim Ketmeyer's kid won this in the past. It's a pretty cool competition. And so we hope that one of our fourth graders wins the top prize again. And then lastly, last week we had our 12 days of reading reward ceremony. So over winter break, the kids have to do 12 days of reading. And if they complete that challenge, they're invited to a little reward afternoon. This time we did some crafts and some games in the cafeteria, and it was really well attended. So that's what we had going on.
Thank you. So you're tracking the Big Buddy program with attendance?
Yeah, we're going to see if there's some kind of connection. We're hoping that it encourages attendance.
That's one of our focuses this year. So
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And welcome again. Not that you have to comment, but I'm sure you coach up and perhaps you bring into the table some good student body. Any general comments tonight, or are you good?
We're starting to work on a survey. Dr. Lee reached out to me for that, so we'll start doing that and get some feedback from the students. So
Fantastic. That's what we want to hear. That's great. Thank you. Ms. Farrell.
We talked a little bit about attendance tonight, and in my world, we do a lot of data collection. We have to submit all these reports to the Department of Education to make sure that we're meeting what's called state performance plan indicators. So I've talked about this in a couple of other meetings, but one piece of data that we have fallen short on is our graduation rate for students with disabilities. So I'm involved, as well as several members of our district, with oversight from state ed, what's called a targeted skills group, and we're looking at breaking down the reasons why some of our students with disabilities aren't completing school. And we know attendance is a factor there. That's why I brought that as sort of my tie-in. So we're working on that very diligently. What we're hoping to do as an outcome of that targeted skills group is increase opportunities for students to have more work-based learning opportunities, more career and tech ed opportunities, and hopefully see them through to the diploma that they're here for. And then a second targeted skills group. So that's sort of a reactive piece to our data collection. And then a little bit of a proactive piece is we will be endeavoring in a second targeted skills group that starts in March to, because next year we have to report to state ed on parental involvement in the special ed process, and we report that out by giving parents a survey about, have we involved them, have we had their voice at the table, have we advocated for them with them. So state ed has asked us in every district that has to submit data for that indicator next year to meet with them proactively to ensure that we're saying the right things, doing the right things, meeting the right, the spirit and the letter of the regulations that we have to follow. Really advocating for our students. So just a couple of things that are going on.
Right. Data, reactive, proactive, that's great. And hopefully we can get some information in the near future.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. White.
Yeah, nothing that everybody sees, if you will. It's a lot of the behind-the-scenes work. Mr. Forbes and I were talking with the representative from the state who was doing the review of all the CARES Act, ARP monies, all the different iterations of those grants. And so there's a lot of going back to things from 4 years ago, 3 years ago. What did we do here, there, and trying to, get all their questions answered with the evidence data that they want to see, just to show the work that we've done with that. And one of those exciting things has been a lot of the curriculum work. And soon we're at the halfway point of this, almost of this school year. So it'll be time to start beginning the conversations about how's the pilot going with literacy. So it's exciting work, but it's all the behind the scenes work that you don't really see.
And it all takes time.
It all takes time, correct. So I appreciate all Mr. Forbes' work on that, with the partnership, and certainly all the administrators when they reach out with questions, how is this, how is that, where is this, where is that, and it's a team effort, it truly is. So people don't often think that, when we have a question about very minute question about, of this thing from 2021, where is the, it's just a lot of go back forth, those reviews take time, and you're kind of like, oh my gracious, as we all know, when we first started with the reopening of COVID, we weren't sure what the safety protocols would be. So a lot of the original orders had to do with face masks and hand sanitizers and things of that nature. Well, then when we no longer needed those were amended to new things. So it's going back and forth through all of those paperwork, and it's good. It just, like you said, it takes time.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's not very exciting either.
It's all about collaboration.
It is, correct.
Mr. Forbes.
Just a reminder to the board members, if you haven't filled out the form that I sent last week with the orders that come along with the board retreat, please do that by the end of tonight.
A fairly quick meeting for a snowy night, potential snowy night. So we anticipate the need to enter an executive tonight to discuss some matters pertaining to personnel. I have a motion. Can I have a motion to go into executive? Let's go. Second?
Second.
Jerry.
I'll give it to Jerry.
Jerry? Okay, Jerry, okay. Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks everyone for coming and speaking, and have a great night. Any students that are here that have their forms signed, you're welcome to go up to any of us and sign your forms. Drive safe.
Thank you.
Oh.
much.